Hello? And a happy New Year's Eve to you too. Of course. I'll pass it on. Thank you. What? No, that won't do at all. You promised to come visit for the holidays. Don't you remember what we talked about 100 years or so back? You need to take care of yourself. Otherwise, you won't be able to help your patients. That's better. Please send my love to Marina. Speak soon. That man would work himself into the grave if he could. So glad he found himself such a nice partner. She makes him take a break once in a while. No more work tonight. I need to take my mind off it. Among other things. What's on TV? In memory of Pumpkin. A finer hunter and companion there never was. Paulina. I think I took good care of her over the years. I still maintain that till this day, it is the most beautiful doll the world has ever seen. Not counting Matilda, of course. I don't usually care much for awards, but this one feels special. It's the highest honor given by the Medical Academy for groundbreaking contributions to hematology. All that blood research the doctor and I used to do really paid off. Took decades to conduct, but luckily, I had no shortage of time. Had to use an alias, of course. Can't keep my real name on the records. Otherwise, over the decades, people would catch on, especially now with the internet real. Anyway, the name may be fake, but the lives we helped save were very real. I may have never mastered the piano, but I always admired the instrument. Sometimes I wish I took more classes with Anastasia. Only have myself to blame. An appraiser friend of mine recently looked at this painting. Turns out, over the decades, it appreciated in value and is now worth a small fortune. Don't think I'll ever sell it, though. It means too much to me. I heard vampires get quite attached to their possessions as they get older. Guess I'm not immune to that.
Well, Oksana, only a few hours left till we get to celebrate the much-anticipated year 2000.
The new year is flying fast towards us, and what better present for the nation than the first annual address of the newly elected President Chernov?
Absolutely. It's been a tumultuous year for our country with the tragic, sudden passing of the former head of state. Luckily, Anatoly Chernov promptly took matters into his own hands, first as acting president and now as president-elect after the results of the official emergency referendum.
That's right, Maxim. President Chernov has already demonstrated his firm and efficient governing style. In his short time in office, he's issued orders to reinforce the defensive military budget. and has also introduced a zero-tolerance policy towards illegal immigration.
Finally, our people will have the much-desired stability back into their lives.
Can't wait to hear what he has to say at midnight.
Me too. Say, Oksana, what are you going to wish for when the clock strikes 12?
Well...
Fools.
I think your carriage has arrived, milady.
Right. Thank you.
You know you don't have to do this, right?
I do.
Come on, dear. Let me come with you. Or even better, why don't you stay and celebrate here with me? We'll crack open some of that Cabernet Arben sent us. Have a little fun. I even got some probiotic pills, so we can have some Olivier salad.
That sounds just lovely, honey, but I can't. I'm sorry. I have to do this on my own, and I have to do it now. I don't know why, but I feel that tomorrow won't be the same.
I understand. Call me if you need anything, alright? And please be careful. There are all kinds of folks there at this time.
Seriously? Are you worried for me or for them?
Being a vampire doesn't protect you from gunshots, you know.
All right. I'll be careful. I promise. I should go down there before the car leaves.
See you next year, my dear.
Love you.
Getting close now.
So, here I am again. Good to be back. It's hard to believe the last time I set foot here was around a century ago. Vampires generally aren't allowed to stay in the same place for more than 20 years, otherwise people start asking questions. Small towns have surprisingly long memories, but you can usually come back once it makes sense for you to pass as your own offspring. Nowadays, they call permission to stay a vampire visa. Higher society granted me one for this town decades ago, but I just haven't been ready until now. I'm not sure why, but I feel like I owe my old friends a visit in this new millennium. Even if it is at a cemetery.
Here we are. That will be 200 coins.
I thought I asked you to stop by the field.
Sorry, lady. No dice. Too much snow.
Fair enough. There you go. Happy New Year's Eve.
Cheers. Why did you bother to come here, if you don't mind me asking? This place is a hole.
Honestly, I'm not so sure myself. I used to live here. I guess I just wanted to walk down memory lane.
Well, good luck with that, and happy upcoming New Year.
After our conversation about his future, to my surprise, Dr. Volkov took my advice and ended his partnership with the Countess. It took some time and a lot of effort, but he was able to overcome his blood addiction and soon enough resumed his usual work with the patients. Dr. Volkov and I still work together, only now I get to be the one in charge. He's head of medicine at my clinic. The change in power dynamics never seemed to bother him. He always cared about the medicine above any kind of politics. He still, of course, has a tendency to overwork, but luckily, his lovely spouse Marina never lets him dive off the deep end. He may not have achieved his dream of revolutionizing Cabernet, but who knows if it was ever even possible. And this way, the doctor and so many people around him, including his patients, are happy and healthy. Sadly, Anastasia never found the ending to the piece she was writing. To no one's surprise, Anastasia and Evgeny never managed to patch things up. Soon enough, they got a divorce, an amicable one as far as those go. Believe it or not, Evgeny ended up marrying his pen pal, Ksenia, the very same young woman who, unwittingly, almost caused her future husband his life. Evgeny published a couple more books, but outside of the poem he so generously dedicated to me, the new works received rather lukewarm receptions. He did, however, seem to find domestic bliss with Ksenia and a steady job as a columnist in a reputable literary journal. Kirill, it's been a while since I thought about you. For as long as I stayed in town, nothing really seemed to change in his life. All the same tricks and schemes. And after that, needless to say, we didn't keep in touch. Call me naive, but I always felt there was more to him than met the eye. Perhaps I would have learned more if I got to know him better, but of course it's a little late for that now. This monument was built to commemorate the brave men and women who saved dozens of lives and prevented further disaster during the town hall tragedy. That night indeed became an important one in the town's history. Due to Yvonne's bomb being defused, the rescue operation was swift and simple, and those who weren't already dead or dying all made it back home. I wish the sign mentioned Gosha by name. She was the true hero in all this. Without her, just like it says there, the outcome could have been a disaster for the ages. Since so many of the horrors beneath Town Hall were vampire-related. Shortly after the rescue operation, the higher society sent a hypnotist crew, a well-trained, powerful group of vampires. Of course, there wasn't any enchantment strong enough to completely remove those memories. However, they did manage to alter them enough to convince the humans that what they saw was all standard prison torture practices. Horrible and illegal, yes, but nothing beyond the depthless depravity of mortal beings. The corpse chamber and draining floor, no more than a gruesome dream that faded with the sunrise. The infamous Savely Skortsov, the purportedly non-corrupt mayor of town, ended up being a ruthless sociopath. The fact that Gosha defused Yvonne's bomb meant two things for him. 1. That the building didn't crumble on top of his own head after the explosion, meaning that he survived the night. And 2. That when I took the townsfolk to help free the prisoners, he was taken by surprise and captured. As one would imagine, given Savelli's deeds, he spent the rest of his life behind bars. Perhaps his greatest legacy is that he became somewhat of a folklore figure. Mothers in this area often frighten their children by telling them that Bloody Savelli will snatch them up if they don't behave. In contrast, the next mayor the town elected remained in his position for nearly a decade and was entirely inconsequential. During that whole time, he arguably did less to improve the town than Savelli did in a few months. But, then again, he didn't organize brutal murders beneath town property. Well, at least that we know of. The Countess, predictably, kept adjusting with the times and growing her fortune. After the Cabernet producing facility at the town hall was destroyed, she took a loss and had to pivot. However, when the doctor terminated their contract, she never ended up finding a decent replacement. It didn't take her too long to bounce back, though. More partners came forward soon enough, and eventually other business opportunities presented themselves. Some say the Countess is now running one of the biggest mafia networks in the country. It's only rumor, of course, but in all honesty, I would certainly not put something like that past her. Victoria still works for the Countess. Say what you want about her, but she's a loyal one. It clearly didn't go unnoticed by Countess Orlova, and, albeit unofficially, Victoria is widely considered to be her number 2. They say she leads the departments that are heavy on the dirty work, since the Countess trusts her. Rumors, of course, but rings true, doesn't it? What can I say? There's never a dull night with Elisa. There aren't many who have the privilege of being friends with this mysterious creature, so I'm proud to be one of the lucky ones. How many vampires can say that they've seen the sunrise after being turned? I am yet to meet another but her. Only her unique blend of intelligence, passion, and a touch of madness could achieve such results. Her technique, however, brought about much more than just her famous sunrise paintings, which I must say are a huge hit among the vampiric community. I often use a version of it in my clinic for both vampire and human anesthetic purposes, and have helped introduce this practice throughout the vampiric medical community. When her vampiric visa in town expired, sadly, Elisa had to abandon her hookah bar. Such is the fate of most vampiric enterprises. However, people remembered it fondly years after its closure and told stories of legendary nights spent there. The tales grew with embellishments until no one knew what was true, like any good story eventually does. There were vampires who attempted to recreate Elisa's success by building their own such establishments, but no one was able to quite capture her same type of magic. Still, wherever she goes, she manages to start a new venture and turn it into something special. To put all that aside for a moment, I'm so happy that we've remained close all these years. Partly because I wouldn't wish it upon anyone to be enemies with Elisa, but mainly because she's the most loyal friend I could ever hope for. While I still lived in town, Arbin stayed here for as long as her vampiric visa allowed. We had our fair share of adventures together, and to this day remain close friends. When she finally left, for a while she tried to maintain her establishment from afar. But alas, literary salons went out of fashion, and eventually they built a regular housing project in its place. Arbin overcame her internal struggles about siring and ended up taking several fledglings under her wing. Unsurprisingly, each and every one of them is well and thriving. She often credits me for that, but really, she's always cared for the newly turned, just like the moment I first met her. Arbin eventually moved abroad, but still sends me a case of delicious red every year. What do you know? The store is still here.
If you're looking for champagne, vodka or flowers, don't bother. They're all out.
Is that right?
Well, why else do you think I'm still open? All the demand and no other supply. That's good business.
Happy New Year's Eve. The bouquet over there, please.
Cutting it a bit late with the presents, aren't you? You'd better hurry home, or you'll miss the president's speech.
Thanks, but I don't think I'll be watching this year. Not my cup of tea.
What? Why not? Don't you care about your own country? See, that's the problem with your generation. You hold nothing sacred.
Oh, really? And what generation do you think that is?
Generation of spoiled brats. You've seen nothing, done nothing, and fought for nothing. You have all the freedom in the world, but no, you just complain and demand more. Show some respect and be grateful for once.
Are you finished? Listen, I'm not who you think I am, but I don't expect you to understand that. Mark my words, I've seen this happen to our country time and time again. At this point, I feel it in my bones, like how some with arthritis can feel rain coming.
What are you babbling about, girl?
Every time there was hope, a person like that man came to crush it. No one has found a way to break the cycle yet, so, of course, I've come to not crush much. All I'm asking is, think and care about your fellow man. Then, make your own choices.
How much have you had to drink?
Enough for a lifetime. Trust me. Happy upcoming New Year. It's moments like these that I regret making fun of the hussar for smoking.
Are you all right, dear? Hope you don't mind me asking. You look out of sorts.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Do you have a place to go tonight? It's New Year's Eve, after all. No good being by yourself.
Thank you. I do have some old friends I'm visiting.
Oh, that's lovely. Just lovely. You know, I overheard what you were saying back there.
Did I get carried away?
Goodness, no. I would have said the exact same thing. I was just like you when I was younger. Didn't let anyone walk over me.
I'm not as young as I look.
Let's talk again in 50 years, dear. See who's right about this.
Sounds good.
That Chernov, though, he's trouble, isn't he?
Yeah.
Just as we managed to turn this rusty ship around, they're pulling the wheel again. Still, All this time, I never lost hope. Not once. And you shouldn't either, dear.
Thank you. I think I needed to hear that today. You know, you remind me of an old friend of mine.
Friends, of course. Sorry for keeping you, dear. Your friends are probably wondering where you are.
Don't worry, they're quite a patient bunch nowadays. Do you need any help carrying your bag?
Oh no, bless you, dear. I live just around the corner.
Really? In the old apartment building?
That's the one. My great-aunt used to own it before the revolution, and I inherited it. I'm very lucky. It's apartment number 1. Stop by for a cup of tea sometime if you feel lonely. Have a wonderful year, dear.
Thank you. And you. Well, what do you know? On the surface, nothing seemed to change all that much in Stefan's life, at least for a while. Same old cards, drinks, and revelry, and, of course, intrigue seemed to follow him everywhere he went. But in reality, everything turned upside down once we freed him from Count Orlov's magic contract. He actually ended up sending his resignation to the Countess via postcard from the Bahamas. Apparently, Elisa was there to witness her fit of rage, and according to her, it was a sight to behold. As much as I would have loved to see it myself, mostly I'm just happy for Stefan. He seemed like a whole new person ever since. I'm also looking forward to meeting his significant other. After all he's been through, for him to have another chance at love. Something tells me he might have finally found his new happy eternity. Locked. Can't blame them, really. I guess I'll just have to do it like in the good old days. To no one's surprise, Anastasia and Evgeny never managed to patch things up. Soon enough, they got a divorce, an amicable one as far as those go. Believe it or not, Evgeny ended up marrying his pen pal, the very same Evgeny published a couple. He did, however. To my relief, Demian was among the many lucky survivors who were rescued from the town hall dungeons. Perhaps even luckier, Demian never ended up on the lower levels of Savelli's underground prison. That left him relatively unscarred, and soon enough he seemed to be back to his old playful self. One thing did seem to change, though. After the events of that night, I certainly noticed him working in the fields much more often. It's hard to find a silver lining to what transpired, but I suppose scaring Demian into a working man may have been one of them. Gosha proved herself a true hero by disarming the bomb prior to the attack on Town Hall. Many assumed that after Ivan, their golden-throated leader, went to prison, the local revolutionary cause would fall apart. But, yet again, brave Gosha came to the rescue, She assembled what was left of the group and pivoted towards peaceful change. Ultimately, she turned it into a legitimate political party that existed for decades after her eventual passing. I still remember the years I spent in Gosha's organization fondly. She was selfless and passionate and cared deeply for each of her fellow citizens. During the years she led the movement, she helped steer the country away from many a tragedy, although, of course, plenty couldn't be avoided. After I told Roman the truth about myself, he immediately volunteered to become a vampire himself. He was beside himself with excitement to learn that so many of his beloved stories were true, and he wanted to be a part of that world as well. After all, his dream was to travel and learn about folklore and culture, and an eternity to do just that seemed perfect. I accompanied him on his expeditions a few times, but I couldn't travel as much due to my medical duties, so he often journeyed on his own. He managed to connect with all kinds of people and hear the legends of their homes and ancestors. It wasn't just for his pleasure either. He published several tomes on world folklore, which were translated to dozens of languages. He loved the people around him, and he shared that love in his favorite way, through his books and stories. I'm happy to report that Petya is still alive and well. He is, of course, still bound to Matilda's body, but at this point, I think even if someone offered him a different form, he'd turn it down. He may have never made it as a great salesman, but, in a way, the fact that he no longer interacted with customers in his new body only did him good. Petya opened a small doll boutique, and, it turns out, when someone else was selling his dolls, people absolutely loved them. He never took it personally, though. Petya was just happy that the dolls found good homes. Of course, to open a business, he needed a human for the paperwork, and who happened to step up but his old friend Elisa. She was the face of his company for quite some time, during which they became the best of pals again. Human or vampire, that's something I never imagined happening in a million years. But life is just full of surprises, isn't it? Oleg and I never became close, but at least till I left town he kept running the shop and seemed to be doing fine. Although, I'm sure he would have preferred to keep his hand. I always felt a sense of gratitude to him for sparing him. In retrospect, I think I'm glad I didn't end up taking a life for an old grudge, albeit a very heavy one. I wonder if the Rusalka is still out there somewhere. Did she ever forgive him? I didn't know exactly what to expect when I told Gosha about the bomb, but she sure came through that fateful night. As I learned later, Yvonne devised a backup plan in case the bomb didn't end up being delivered. But what he didn't plan was on his right-hand woman deactivating the explosive before handing it over to him. When the townsfolk saw what happened and understood the scale of the tragedy that was barely avoided, Yvonne was swiftly thrown into jail. I didn't hear whether he was ever pardoned, but I do know for certain that he never returned to politics. I only knew Faina for a short time, but somehow the memory of her has never faded. She meant a lot to me. She still does. I took care of your flowers as best I could, for as long as they lasted. Rest in peace, dear Faina. Trophim ended up working for the Countess for the rest of his life. He didn't drink much ever since our first encounter and lived well into old age. Was it a happy life? Who's to say? Perhaps it's not just drinking that makes one miserable. I always feel a touch of melancholy when I think of how Marusa's life turned out. Don't get me wrong, she lived a long and full life and was an exemplary worker and an excellent parent to a bunch of smart and stubborn children, just like herself. Marusa did choose her path herself, and by anyone's standards, she made the best of it, but I just can't help but think there was something more in store for her, and that I could have played a part. I did what I came for. I suppose it's time to go home. Oh! Huh. Strange. Snakes usually brumate over the winter. Their metabolism slows down, they stop eating, and hide out underground till it's warmer. Nobody must have come here for ages. I bet I scared it out of its hiding spot. Slithering back to the shadows. How the mighty have fallen. Oof. The church sure has seen better days. What does the sign say? Condemned. Wait a minute. So, it's not technically a church anymore, and I don't need an invitation. Does that mean I can enter it? Wow. It's been over a century since I've been inside a church. I'd forgotten how it looks, what it smells like. I'd forgotten how much I missed it. How much I wanted to come in sometimes when I was scared and lost. Oh, damn it. The Morozov family. Minus me, of course. I remember how, even before I was allowed to touch matches, in church, Mother would let me light candles for people we knew. I loved doing it, partly because of the excitement of the dangerous forbidden flame, but it was also more than that. Even before I knew what it meant, it felt important. Why don't I light some candles now? I may not get another chance. I've got enough. There. People tend to only say good things about the dead, but we all knew Father was far from perfect. Slowly but surely, drinking turned him from a kind and loving person into a monster. And I know more than most what it means to be one. But some fairy tales do have a happy ending. He managed to quit drinking soon after that fateful summer. I couldn't have been more proud of him. I might be giving us too much credit, but I feel like Kolya and I might have had something to do with it. Mom stuck with him through the rough months. Uncle Mitko helped out with money before they got back on their feet, and from what I gathered, they both ended up rather happy. So glad I managed to get this new picture of them. Of course, according to higher society laws, we're never supposed to get in touch with family, but Kolya and I bent the rules just a little. We got into some trouble, of course, but that's a whole other story. Rest in peace, dear mother and father. It's not easy being an older sister, but being a younger brother must have also had its challenges. Kolya adjusted surprisingly well, all things considered, and he somehow managed to keep his humanity. He tried not to show it, but back when I told him what I saw on the lower floors of the underground prison, I could tell he was truly shaken. I feel that in some way, it helped to save his sanity. For decades now, he's been working with organizations helping the poor and those with addiction. I'm proud of you. This one is for you, dear brother. Funny thing, for over a century I've lived so many lives. Different names, cities, friends, and enemies. I've seen more people live and die than one can count, or care to remember. But even after all this time, I still think about my family. They never faded away. I could have done things differently, and every day I have to live with my choices and my mistakes. Some of them are heavy and bury themselves deep in my gut. From what I hear, every vampire receives a keepsake like that sooner or later. Maybe that's the true payment for eternal life. Or maybe it's a part of any life, really. I don't know if they ever fully go away. If I'm honest, I don't think so. But they remind me to do things differently, to be better. And when I do, sometimes I feel human again. Last candle left. I think I know what I'll light it for. I've seen people in this country go through so much suffering. Wars, revolutions, tyranny, famine. So much has happened, and yet so little has changed. Some people say this country is cursed, hopeless. I don't know if I believe that. I've seen fates crushed by a short sentence. I've seen lives saved by a simple embrace. No matter what they say, a person's choice can make a difference, so you might as well do your best. Who knows? Maybe one day we'll all make enough of the good ones. And for now, there is hope. Demons may be hereditary, but we are in charge of them.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year!
Птицы плачут по белому снегу, дворник не может очистить их серость. Пьяный он смотрит на красные руки, тень на глазах умирает со скуки. Если чудеса только в фильмах, если чудеса только в книжках, кому я молюсь, кому я молюсь. Дети в подвале мучают кошку, я подпеваю, дышу понарошку. Белое платье моей пустоты так не к лицу мне, не приходи, если чудеса только в книжках, если чудеса только в фильмах.